Okay, cognitive dissonance is really good. I included this here because it's a relevant and I think a better cognitive explanation for divorce than locus of control. And also, cognitive dissonance is a tricky topic. So by giving students a chance to review it again, I think it would be helpful because we also looked at it in cults. All right, so they should know what it is and how it can lead to divorce. Key term tennis. You give them the unit. So the first one's going to be the biological approach, and a student says a term like hormones, and then their partner has 5 seconds to say another term. I like to give students red pieces of card, like a red card, like a football referee. And if their student says something unrelated or too random, then the student can challenge, and they can hold up the red card and challenge, and then I come over and judge. And if I agree, then the challenger with the red card gets the point. But if they challenge and I think it's a perfectly legit term, then the red card person doesn't get the point, their partner gets the point, and they start again. So this is key term tennis. I'll try to make a video showing how it works, but it's just going back and forth. The idea here being just to get students thinking about and remembering off the top of their heads, biological approach, what are some of the topics that we covered in that? And then the sociocultural approach, and then here couples. And they should be psychological terms, right? Not just things like holding hands. No, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for things like allocentrism, marital satisfaction, stonewalling, etc. Alright, so have a game of that. Think, pair, share. Alright, do you think kids save or savage a marriage? Right, so meaning, is it better to have more kids? Will couples be happier? Or will people with more kids be unhappier, and why? And I kind of like these think, pair, shares to get a bit of a hook, because we're going to explain, look, hey, in this lesson, we're going to find the answer to this question. 2, you'll find the answer. That should say, today, you'll find the answer. Yet another typo. Okay, now I'm hoping. Now what's happened here is, sorry. What's happened here is my screen recorder went because I messed with the slides to fix it. Okay, today you'll find the answer. All right, can you diagram cognitive dissonance? Yet another Simpsons reference. That's where Milhouse's dad draws dignity. All right, 3 minutes, work in pairs, try and do it from memory, space in the workbook. It makes sense to me to try to diagram cognitive dissonance because there's a lot of kind of moving parts to it, and they can use information on page 68. This is how I would diagram it. And I've put first, in the workbook I said it might help to first draw cognitive consistency, right? Okay, so we're happy when our thoughts and actions are consistent with other thoughts and actions. Everything's in harmony, yay, good feeling. Cognitive dissonance is not the conflicting thoughts, right? It's the unpleasant feeling from those conflicting thoughts or actions. And so when they're inconsistent, we experience cognitive dissonance. I found the video, of the turning pegs. What they had to do is as boring as it sounds. Here's a screenshot. It's linked later in this video, maybe in the next lesson. We can review Fessinger's study and why or how that demonstrates cognitive dissonance, and then we link it to divorce. So I'm going to model and explain the first way that cognitive dissonance could explain divorce, because remember, we change our thoughts or actions to restore cognitive consistency. That's how cognitive dissonance changes our behavior. And so in that change is how it could open the door to divorce. For example, right, thought and action number 1, I'm a good partner, I'm right, they're wrong, right? And then this is inconsistent with being critical or defensive or stonewalling. If we're going, well, hang on, I'm like the good person in this, but my behavior is actually inconsistent with that. So now I might change my thoughts. Yeah, well, actually, I'm a good partner, I'm right. And my criticism and my stonewalling, this is actually useful. This is good. Like, if I don't critique, how else, we're going to improve the relationship? If I don't stonewall, I'll just make matters worse. So now I've changed my thoughts. Instead of being, well, actually, the 4 horsemen are bad, and that's what I'm doing, to go, well, no, they're helpful. Now I've restored my cognitive consistency, but my behavior has changed in a way that's more likely to justify the 4 horsemen and increase the chances of divorce. Now you hand it over to the students. They use the information on page 68 to 69. Can they diagram one or more explanations of how cognitive dissonance could explain divorce? So the next one is the openness to divorce, changing their thoughts about marriage. So this is the example if they struggle to come up with it by themselves. But give them a few minutes, 6, 7, 8 minutes, see how they go, and then you can use these slides to explain, right? So, thought action, there's lots of fighting, arguing, being unhappy in a marriage, right? That is inconsistent with the idea that marriage is important for our family, right? Those two things don't really go together, where the behavior is all this fighting and disharmony is inconsistent with my thought that, actually marriage is really beneficial. So, in order to restore cognitive consistency, I changed the thinking to go, you know what? Maybe divorce isn't so bad. Maybe divorce would be better for the kids. I think we'll be better off by ourselves. So now, this is consistent with the idea that there's lots of fighting, we're unhappy, and divorce isn't so bad. Okay, now I'm open to this idea of divorce. I'm one step further down the path towards it. I hope this makes sense to you guys. All right, workbook notes time, and simple homework to finish them. End of that topic, and then next we'll look at couples therapy.